preventing me from going fully into my highest excitement is that
Yes.
a part of it requires me to tell my story. And I don't really like talking about myself.
Why not? I'm not saying you have to be egotistical about it, but if you recognize that part of moving forward and part of your excitement is sharing at least a part of your story with someone, if that's true, if that's really necessary, then why wouldn't you assume that it is in fact part of your excitement and not something that needs to be taken egotistically?
It's not necessarily ego. It's more so that I'm afraid to
That's
do it.
ego.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's
Well,
ego.
yeah, you're right.
I know. That's ego, negative ego. You're afraid to do it because you think you'll be judged?
Yeah, and I'm judging myself.
Of course you are.
So it's turning me into this cynical girl who kind of just, isolates myself and procrastinates a lot. And
All right. Then be proud of being cynical girl. That's your superpower. I am cynical girl. I can slay the best intentions with a thought. I can dampen the most wonderful dreams. I can destroy your hopes. I am cynical girl.
No, it's I don't want to be anymore. I want to be okay.
Time
with
to turn in your cape.
Yeah.
How about this? Being who you are, I sense that you can be, in a positive way, a little feisty. Am I correct?
Yes.
Why not be a little more feisty with yourself? And I don't mean this in a negative way, but I'm just going to use this terminology because it seems that this would be the clearest way to express it. Why don't you tell your inner critic to take a hike?
Okay. All right.
It's all well and good to pay attention to make sure that there isn't some advice there that actually would serve you. But if you've determined that that's not advice that works for you, you can tell your inner critic, thank you very much, you've done your job, but right now, I'm the one in charge and I'm going to make the decision and I'm going to stop judging myself because that's not commensurate with who I prefer to be.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah. I actually, a few months ago occasionally I get like out of body experiences, and
Yes.
one of them that I received was me standing before, I don't know what it was exactly, some guides, and they told me it's time to get over it.
Yes,
and
get
move
over
forward.
it. Yes.
So,
In other words, if you're going to be cynical, at least you could do yourself the favor of being cynical about your cynicism.
yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I know. That's why I said it. Is this helping you at all?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Do you feel a little bit freer to move forward in the way that you prefer to without fearing that you're going to be judging yourself? Or do you feel that you can move forward and even if someone else comes to you and you test yourself by having them act like they're judging you, will you know that it has nothing to do with you and pass the test?
Yes. I've done that before.
Can you do it again?
Yeah.
Can you do it again and again and again?
Yes.
And again and again and again and again. And just keep doing that.
Okay.
There's no reason to stop doing that.
Yeah, you're right.
I know.
And let's see. You probably answered this already, but since I was
Not for you. Clearly.
Since I was a kid,
Yes.
I've
You mean
always,
last week?
Yeah, and now a little bit. I have
Yeah, you're all
some
still
childlike,
kids. Yes.
yeah, qualities. But I've always been communicating with guides and
Yes, of course. It's natural. Children haven't learned not to yet. They haven't been trained out of it yet. So some of you will hang on to that. But the
Yeah.
idea is that you can develop that again.
yeah. I still do.
Yes.
And I was sharing my intuitive gifts with people
Yes.
for some of what involves my highest excitement. I was sharing that.
All right.
Then I found myself irritated because people started to use it as a crutch instead of
All right.
fixing their own
But
problems.
why would you get irritated instead of having compassion for them to recognize that the only reason they would use something like that as a crutch is because they have their own fear-based issues and they feel an emptiness within themselves that they don't know how to fill? Anything you use as a crutch or an addiction is an attempt to fill a hole you feel within your spirit. But they simply don't yet have an understanding of how to fill that by connecting to Source, by knowing that they are self-empowered beings. So getting irritated with that reaction only reinforces the vibration of their inability to not get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if it's kind of selfish because
What
now,
is selfish?
Well, because now I just I use it for myself, and
Yes.
in the case of emergencies, I'll tell
Emergencies?
friends or family to do something different so they
All
don't
right.
attract.
You may always suggest to anyone your particular perspective. The only thing that's selfish is if you expect that they must listen. That's arrogant. You are there to give them an opportunity to see that there might be another option by being an example of it. Getting irritated means that you expect that they should, which cancels out the gift you have just given them. So you're not doing them any favors by being irritated. You're just there to demonstrate, to offer. Anything else is selfish and arrogant. Because you have no business deciding for them what they should or shouldn't believe.
Okay. It wasn't necessarily what they should believe. Well, maybe it was.
Yeah, it was. Let's be honest.
Okay.
There would be no other reason for you to be irritated other than that you have an expectation that they're supposed to listen, that they're supposed to get it. Just think how irritated we would be
Oh, yeah.
for all the people on your planet that don't get what we're saying.
I know. I spoke to you 3 times, so I can imagine.
But you
that-
see, we don't get irritated because, and I know this is going to sound a little funny, it doesn't mean we don't care about you. We love you unconditionally. But we don't care whether you listen to us. I do what I do because this is who I am. This is what excites me. This is my passion. I know that because it's my passion, someone is going to listen and someone is going to get it. And that's the only one I need to care that gets it. I don't have to care whether anyone else gets it because I'm not doing it so you will get it. I'm doing it because this is who I am, and because it's who I am, and because I understand how this works, I know that some of you will get it. And that's good enough. Because the rest that don't get it aren't going to get it anyway from me. They'll get it somewhere else, and I know that too. So it's not like it has to be my job to make sure you get it. The one that will make sure eventually that you get it is called life. You'll get it eventually because you live, you exist. You'll get it. You don't have to get it now. There's no rush, there's no hurry. You're infinite, eternal beings.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Wow.
Doesn't that feel more relaxed?
Yeah, now I want to add my intuitive abilities back into my work for other people.
By all means.
Because I guess if I was getting a message and talking to their guys and they didn't listen, or I would get upset.
Yes.
But now I realize it doesn't matter. I just...
And it doesn't
Because
help.
I love it.
It doesn't help
Yeah.
if you get upset. You have to understand that getting upset is actually completely counterproductive to what it is you're doing. It's like saying, here's a gift. Oh, no, not really. Here's a gift. Oh, no, not really. Stop messing with them. Give them the gift and walk away. When you give someone a gift, it's no longer any of your business what they do with it. Is it?
No.
Thank you. So, You're giving gifts, not ultimatums, not conditions. You're giving gifts freely. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Thanks. And one more question.
Maybe,
I think
maybe.
this is my third one, right? In my house currently, you know, my husband and I were both into this kind of work. And when we do it, it works out. But I noticed there's like this energy exchange that goes back and forth.
Between you and...
Me and my husband, where
Yes.
one of us will be making progress on our destiny, so to speak.
Yes.
And then the other will try to distract the other from it, like get...
That's how you do it. That's how you work with each other. You reflect to each other exactly what you need at that moment to test each other and see if you've actually learned what you say you've learned. Oh.
So the key is to not go back into the old vibration and
It's
blame
not
each other?
what happens. It's what you do with what happens. The measure of change is not whether the outside changes. The measure of change is whether you respond differently, even if the outside still looks the same. Because if you're basing how you feel on what happens on the outside, then your change is conditional. It's not really a change, and therefore why should the outside change? Because you really haven't. But when you say, this is what I prefer, and it doesn't matter what the outside looks like, now you've proven that you've changed, and when you've proven you've changed, the outside usually changes. Not because you need it to, just because the outside has no choice but to change when you have actually changed, when you've proven you've changed by not caring whether the reflection changes or not. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Hello.
And you good day.
I have to say that this is really exciting. So, this is
Well, if you have to say it, then by all means say it.
well, you know, following your highest excitement.
Yes.
And I guess I'm up here, and before, at the beginning of lunch, I heard, don't say what you know, say what you feel.
All right.
And so I'm kind of like improving right now in the moment because I wrote down so many things that were coming to me.
Yes.
And I have questions, but I'm just going to see what naturally kind of comes out.
By all means.
So I am, as we all are, kind of like channels and intuitives.
Everyone is.
Yeah. And
Just a matter of awakening to that fact.
Yeah, and so one thing I noticed, like being here and like when you were tuning in the beginning, I felt like what was going on in Daryl's body, and it was like it was a really cool thing.
Yes.
And I've been feeling things shifting in my body and clearing.
Well,
and,
yes, of course. Remember that
Yeah.
when the connection is made, the channel is functioning as a reflection of our frequency to whatever degree is relevant in your reality, and his electromagnetic field will take on those frequencies, which many of you will then sense. And
Yeah.
you will either match it or you'll do something else with it. Mm-hmm. But the channel's body during these events does radiate something that is closer to our frequency.
Yeah. So what I'm realizing, and I'm kind of synthesizing this in the moment, is that making that change in belief
Yes.
can really come from a physical realm. And I live...
Can come from anywhere.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess because I'm kind of very
Because it's
kinesthetic
all permission slips.
I like that. I'm a singer, so that was cool. It was
We
good.
thought you would appreciate the frequency.
Thank you. So in that realm, so my next thing is that I felt like I heard you in the back of my head, and I'm wondering if that was my, like during lunch, or
You
was that
heard
my...
you.
That's what I thought. Like sometimes you put, like, by you, I mean mine and my higher self.
Yes.
Gives myself permission to hear something
Yes.
through a voice of somebody who I think knows more than me.
You may use me as a permission slip to allow the voice to seem familiar, but it's still you.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
So, but I do in meditation, sometimes I can sense that it is me.
Yes.
And sometimes it is another, like I have
It
different
is
guides I work
sometimes,
with.
and other, but it's
Yeah.
still you because the other still has to come through you. It's just that the you is now taking on the vibration of the other, but it's still you in order to reach you.
Do you mean like the message that's coming through is a message that I know, but that person's stepping in kind of like as an intermediary to tell
Look
it
at your
to
own
me?
telephones.
Okay.
You know that the person speaking to you on the phone, their voice at their end is not what you're hearing at your end. It's been converted into electronic signals, beamed to a satellite, beamed to your phone, reconverted into acoustic signals,
Okay.
acoustic vibrations. It's not the original voice, but it's your phone doing it. So even though you may be in contact with another entity, the other entity still has to allow you to alter your frequency in such a way as to translate the other entity's vibration using your own energy.
Interesting. I'm feeling right now that I'm going to get more of the message later and it'll make sense. And as soon as you just said that frequency, there was a
Yes.
buzzing in my left ear.
There
and
you
now
go.
it just went away.
All right.
So that was pretty cool.
Yes.
Okay, I have a actual question now instead of
Oh,
a
an
dialogue.
actual question. All right.
I'm feeling it. So the thing with excitement,
Yes.
so there's kind of like a soul deep excitement, and then there's like an, I don't know, kind of like a surface ego excitement.
Yes,
And
kind of.
So
there can be.
can you kind of elaborate on that? Because I feel one of my things is that I can be too dualistic and feeling like there's fighting excitements.
Well,
Or
do you
sometimes-
understand that creation is not a duality? It's a trinity. There is always a balance point in the center. Find the balance point in the center, and you will understand what the differences are in the different frequencies that you are experiencing.
Like I'm feeling the different possibilities of excitement.
Yes, the different levels, the different expressions of it that are relevant for the different levels that exist.
So one thing that I'm hard on myself about is, oh, you have to choose the right one, like the highest one, the best one. And that causes me a lot of anxiety and keeps
Why?
me from doing things.
You will always choose the best one at any given moment that is relevant for you in the level that you're operating on.
Well, so with that, there's like the feeling of, oh, this is like not my highest calling or my highest destiny, but I want to do it anyway. And am I interpreting that right, or am I putting a judgment on it?
Say it again.
Yeah, I don't even understand what I just said, actually.
Well, that's a good sign.
Well, like, okay, so it's like, I'm going to use a really like,
Maybe I should speak a little bit more your language.
as I said, I'm just kind of like channeling all of this in the moment too, so
Yes.
this is fun.
Yes. Now, what was the question, really?
Okay, so something else is coming.
Yes.
Is there really a difference between my ego and my soul?
Yes. Your ego is the structure that focuses your soul in a way that allows it to experience what you call physical reality. The ego structure, just by itself, its job is just to give you a physical experience. As we have often said, the analogy is sort of similar to a diving mask. If you're going to dive into the ocean, it's going to be a little blurry unless you wear a diving mask that sharpens the image for you. So the ego is simply the diving mask. It's not designed to tell you what to do or where to go. It's only designed to give you the experience that you decide to have in the clearest possible way. So when you overload the diving mask with all these ideas that it's supposed to be in charge of everything, the diving mask will, in a sense, resent that because it's not built for that. And that's what turns it into the negative ego, and that's when the diving mask cracks.
Huh. So kind of what you're saying is like the ego,
It's a personality structure.
yeah, and the thing you just said about being in control. So that's usually what a lot of us want to be and what the ego wants to do. But you're saying the ego actually doesn't want to do that because that's not even necessarily its
Correct.
job.
It's not what it's designed
That's
to do.
so cool. So we're like doing it to ourselves.
Yes. Yes, you are. Because of the things you've been taught. The way you've been taught to think about yourselves quite often is exactly backwards from the way you really need to think about yourselves. The personality structure is like a three-sided prism. And it is that prism that breaks down the white light, the unbroken light of your consciousness, into the spectrum of your experience you call physical reality. But that's its job. That's it. It gives you that breakdown experience so you can experience time and space and process and change and discovery from a new point of view.
Like a rainbow.
Exactly. And that's its job, and that's it. It's not designed to determine what you should do with that rainbow.
That's really cool. And that's why you listen and go in the moment and the excitement, because it's a process and you don't know everything at once, so you're not supposed to. Okay.
And you're not supposed to.
Even if you have intuition, it's like, because that's another thing I'm hard on myself. Like, oh, you should know and blah, 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 but I shouldn't know.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
You will know what you need to know when you need to know it.
Right, right.
That's why we in our civilization have absolutely no memory. We just know that we will know what we need to know when we need to know it. And we do. Period. We don't have to remember anything. The information is just there when we need it. Not a second before we need it, but not a second later than we need it. Just there, in perfect timing. That's why our civilization functions on what we call pure synchronism.
And everybody's following their highest excitement.
Absolutely. And everything works. And everything dovetails and everything fits. Just again, like if you have a picture puzzle, all the pieces that form that big picture have a certain shape. And only by retaining their real shape do they all fit together to form the big picture. The trouble comes when you try to change the shape of the piece into something it's not. Then it doesn't fit in the picture.
Yeah.
That's the struggle that you all feel, is the struggle of trying to be someone you're not. You think it's the hardest thing in the world to be yourself. That's actually the easiest thing in the world. But you've been taught the opposite. So you try all sorts of things that are not you, and you wonder why you're exhausted all the time. It's exhausting trying to be someone you're not. It's effortless and energizing to be who you actually are. Does that help?
That was awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
As we appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Humbly grateful to be here. Thank you. I really like something that you said earlier about being in your highest excitement and always staying in a positive state.
Yes.
And I've adopted this belief, and I think it's served me really well, that everything happens for us and not to us.
Yes.
And
it happens through you, not to you.
Yeah. So today's been a lot of really good reaffirmations of lessons I've learned and teachings and stuff like that. One thing I wanted to ask you was, I've been a very lucid dreamer most of my life, and they've been becoming more and more clear.
All right. How
And,
exciting.
Yeah. Except I don't know how to translate what I'm seeing or receiving sometimes. So if there's any advice.
Well, how does it feel? What state does it put you in? Whenever you can't intellectually figure it out with your physical mind, always go to the vibration itself. What state does it allow you to experience? That usually means that's the state from which you need to act in life that would serve you best. So if you just get into the state, you will know whatever details you need to know. For most of those experiences, the most important thing is the state itself, not the details.
Okay. So I've been journaling every morning when I have the dream, what I can remember and how I felt. So these are, I don't know, sometimes it's really good, it's really bad. I feel safe, unsafe.
Safe and unsafe.
Yeah.
What do you feel unsafe about?
So the energy work that I've been learning and doing, there are entities that can attach to us. That's just a belief. Well, I can feel it. So, yeah, I don't want to think about it. I really don't believe that it can affect me. But then I'll feel like a compression in my chest, and I'll have anxiety out of nowhere. And okay,
It's not out of nowhere.
where does it come from?
Your definition. The one you're buying into.
So that I'm allowing it in through that definition.
Yes, of course you're aligning with the negative definition. That's what gives you the anxiety.
Okay.
Do you prefer that?
No.
Then why are you aligning with that definition that doesn't work for you?
Okay.
Is that simple enough for you?
Well said.
All right.
So I am a poker player also, and this is an idea that I've been playing around with. If I want to see a specific card that will give me a good hand, I try to visualize it before the cards run out. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting like superstitious or it's driving me a little crazy. Is this something that I can actually manifest in real time?
In some senses, when you need to, but again, remember, you're ignoring the third part of the formula.
The expectations.
Yep.
Okay.
Too much insistence, too many conditions. You have to trust the flow. And that means whatever you get is exactly what you need at that moment.
Okay.
Because it's up to you to figure out why it happened that way and how you can use it in a positive way. That's why. Because the higher self knows what the card is you need to look at that moment, if only to show you that you might still be putting conditions on things by insisting on a different card.
Okay. And I've been trying to learn when is a good time to leave, because sometimes I will feel like a shift in energy. And
In what?
In like the flow of the game.
Then leave.
Yeah, so, okay. So just, I guess, learning to trust myself more when to leave.
You see, you're looking at the game as if it's supposed to get you something, instead of understanding the game as a process that you're going through. That's what's tripping you up. It's a process. And since you can allow yourself to understand that you're enjoying just going through the process, then whatever happens in that process, you have to know is what's serving you. It's not about the idea of the cards having to be in a certain way for you to know you're a winner. So you may be testing yourself to decide, do you just know that you are a winner in life regardless of the cards in your hand? Or not? That's the process.
Okay.
So no matter what the cards are, you won. Because you won something more important than whatever the stakes are in the game, which is just a symbol for everyone playing it of a process they need to go through to get in touch with different aspects of their definitions and consciousness. That's the real game of poker. Not the cards on the surface. That's an illusion. Physical reality isn't real. You're going through a process. You're playing a very, very high-level game with one another that gives each other an opportunity to discover things about themselves. But if you're looking at the cards and attempting to win the stakes, I'm not saying you can't from time to time when it's your time to do so, and it will be from time to time, and that's okay, in perfect timing. But if you're not really playing the higher game, then you're not really playing the correct game. You're just playing the illusion game. So play a higher game. See it as a process for everyone, discovering something about themselves. Whether the other players are doing that or not doesn't matter. You're doing it for yourself, and you can see that the other players are actually doing it for that reason, even if they don't consciously know it. When you start looking at the game from that level, you will play a whole different game. And you'll be surprised at the synchronicities that occur. And they won't necessarily be what they need to be to, quote unquote, win the card game, but the synchronicities that you see will all be aces for you. Yes?
Yeah, it's simple, but the mind doesn't want to make it seem that simple, so complicated.
The definitions. It's not the mind. Don't blame the mind. The mind is just a mask. It's the definitions you're coloring the mind with that make it difficult. There is no such thing as an inherently difficult situation. Only your definitions make it seem so.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Good game.
Greetings.
And a you good day.
The past I think of is not mine from this point.
All right.
So, but we just use that as reference?
You can. Whatever you decide you are now is who you are. If you really, really know that that's true. You can't pretend. You can't cover things up, gloss them over, ignore things that are there for you to look at. But whatever you define yourself to be is how you will experience your life, and that's what creates the idea of the effect of the past on you. You create the past from the present, not the other way around.
What's Changa?
What is Changa?
Yes.
The word is not translating into our reality. Can you provide a definition?
Smokable ayahuasca.
All right. It isn't dissimilar from what we described earlier about the idea of letting the smoke, in a sense, disperse itself with intention. It is infusing interdimensional realities with a statement of who you are, so that you can receive the reflections that you need at that moment, so that you can receive the responses from the intelligence in the ayahuasca in the best possible way. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Anything else?
What are tattoos?
What are
They
tattoos?
seem alive.
Do you mean on your body?
Yes.
What do you mean, what are they?
I feel like I can grab them sometime.
Well, yeah, you can. Because again, people that place tattoos on their bodies are making a statement of intention, a statement of energy. There are symbols on other levels, non-physical levels, higher dimensional levels, that are simply being represented and symbolized by the tattoos on the body. So you might simply be seeing the tattoos in the multiple dimensions in which they exist.
So I can, is there like a game I can play with them?
Of course there is. Use your imagination. There are many different kinds of games you can play with it.
Okay. What is datura?
Specifically the substance?
Or what's, like, what would I learn from it?
Well, why
What
don't
is
you
that?
use it and find out?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Bashar.
And a you good day.
Standing close here.
All right.
Okay. I'm thrilled to be here. I have, on topic, Dare to Dream. Dare to dream your dream. I
Yes.
feel very appreciative and just robust with appreciation just over living my dream. I've been living
Thank
my
you.
dream for a very long time.
Thank you, thank you.
Along with that dream is the love of learning and teaching.
Yes.
That they go together. And
Yes.
so I taught at the university for, my life.
All right.
And then, as we've talked about, my physical mind wasn't really aware of this, but there was a whole group of us that weren't tenured, and none of our contracts got renewed last year.
Oh, how exciting.
It was very exciting. What was really interesting was to see everybody's first reaction was, oh my God, what are you going to do, right? Like, no income, how are you going to survive? And so I listened to you in my head, and I remembered change the definition.
Yes.
So I changed it to winning the lottery. So I decided that the change of not teaching at the university anymore was winning the lottery for me.
All right, very good.
And I've devoted my life to more learning, but on the spiritual side, just really devoted to it. And I'm wondering now, in that I'm in this part of my life, kind of the same part as Daryl is in age-wise and body, years here.
Yes.
And so I have a different kind of dream
Yes.
that I want to dare to dream.
All right.
Than like a career at this point.
All right, well, what would that be?
Well, I guess that's when I kind of feel like a little kid asking this. Is it all right, Bashar, if my dream that I dare to dream is to follow synchronicity, to let my higher self choose?
That's not acting on a dream. You're simply
Okay.
describing the mechanisms that allow you to act on your dream. So you don't need to focus on those. That's the automatic part of the machinery.
Okay.
You're not putting anything into it. You're just describing the machine.
Do you always have to dare to dream then, or is painting or kind
What
of
did we
feeling like a
say at the
teenager
beginning
again?
of
Okay.
this transmission? What did we say at the beginning of this transmission? It is important to act.
To act.
You must feed the machine so it has something to spit back out. If you're just describing the machine to yourself, then you're just watching the machine run. You are designed to use the machine. Now, if you want to look at the machine and understand the machine and teach about the machine to others, that's taking an action. But if you're just watching the machine, you're not doing anything with it.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
All right.
I will
That's
be
like saying,
meditating on that.
I have bought this wonderful, brand new automobile. I'm just going to stand here and look at it. Not going to drive it. Ever, ever, ever. Just going to appreciate the wonderful glistening paint job and the beautiful smell of the car and so on and so forth. But I'm never going to use it. So why did you buy it?
Okay. Okay.
Yes?
Yes. Second,
Yes.
over all the CDs that I listened to with you talking, answering people's questions, I don't believe I ever remember hearing a man ask if he had hybrid children. And so
They have. Males
I
have
just
asked.
missed it. I'm wondering if there's anyone that doesn't have hybrid children.
Yes, of course there are.
Are there really? I kind of thought it was. I guess
They don't usually tend to wind up in these conversations with us.
Okay.
Some of them might. But overall, because we are very strongly connected with people who are very strongly connected to the hybridization agenda, most people have some relationship to it in some way, shape, or form, whether they have hybrid children literally or not.
Okay. Okay. So does that then? I'm going to ask: do I have any close enough to have relationships with?
Yes?
Yes. They have something they'd like to share with me.
Well, we're just going to give you the literal translation.
Okay.
Get off the stick.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
A little bit.
All right.
A little bit. A little bit. And one question about memory.
Yes.
And I'm having a little trouble remembering. Oh, it
You
was.
have trouble remembering about memory?
Yeah, a little bit.
How fascinating.
It is a little fascinating considering I drive a lot of people crazy because I usually remember everything. And I sometimes wonder if remembering like too much or can you be too smart that it screws you up?
No, it's not about being too smart.
Okay.
Again, the idea is you just know what you need to know when you need to know it. It's not about having to memorize a whole bunch of stuff. Because if you don't need that stuff right now, why should you remember it?
Yeah, I don't
Why
know.
should
It's a
you
good
know
question,
it?
You know.
If you stay in the state where you know you will know what you need to know when you need to know it, you will know what you need to know when you need to know it.
To know it. Thank you, Bashar.
You are welcome. Remember that.
Okay.
When you need to.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
So we have some questions from our Ustream listeners.
Yes.
All right. So one of them is,
Oh, how interesting.
oh, I was sending it to you telepathically.
Well, and here's your answer.
That's pretty funny.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so someone asked a question about grief.
Yes, which we have explained earlier.
Right. And they wanted to know, how can you tell the difference between the natural process of the loss experience and when you are filtering through negative beliefs that you don't need anymore?
Sometimes it has to do with how long it goes on. There are natural timings for some of these things. Do you understand?
Yes.
And therefore, you will generally find that somewhere between 1 to 3 years will be the natural process, depending upon the process that person may need to go through. After that, it's usually the result of negative definitions and filters.
So, what is the reason that we go through this? I know that there seems to be something about as you bond with another person and you
Yes.
connect energies and everything, that when that person is no longer there,
Yes.
some aspect of the self seems to need a process to regain
Yes.
themselves in a way that doesn't include the other person in the same way.
Well,
maybe?
that's in a sense what the natural grief is for. It's sort of similar to the idea of natural compression. The negative side being depression, but the positive side being compression, where you withdraw and go within yourself and rearrange yourself, reorder your thoughts, reorder your definitions, examine yourself, decide who you are. It puts you through that process. And the idea then is to come out emerged as a new person who understands something different and sees things in a different way and has a different perspective about life and your relationship to it. That's what it's for. That's what the natural grieving process is for. It's a kind of inner compression to re-identify yourself in a new way at a higher level of relationship with spirit. But the idea, as we have said, is there can be a positive experience of that and a negative experience of that.
How would you relate that to the idea of resistance to reinventing oneself? In the sense that when you lose another person's physical presence.
Yes.
And then
the resistance to reinventing the self comes from a belief and a definition that and realize that you're being communicated with. And you will start receiving it as a communication instead of a loss.
Yes, that's so interesting because that's very accurate, and it's also reflective of the times that we're in, because perhaps in earlier times on the planet, people didn't understand that there was this option of actually expanding to the point where you can connect with a dead person.
Well, the shamans did.
Right.
The medicine people did, but not the general populace. Although earlier on, much earlier on, most of the populace did, because that's what the shamans and medicine people and high priests actually taught, is that life does go on. Certain cultures have, in a sense, forgotten that over time, have unlearned that over time. But many of the earliest cultures on your planet knew this.
Yes, it's very interesting because now when you lose someone in that way,
you're not losing them, but that's the way it seems.
Having the recognition that they're asking you to stretch, to connect, to learn a new way, a new awareness of communication.
Yes.
And it's the love that you feel for that person that will draw you to do it.
Yes, and it's the love you feel from them that will draw you to do it.
And that's another piece of it, is recognizing that when the feelings come really strongly, and they are feeling like loss, you can actually recognize that the person is in contact with you at that moment.
Yes.
And that it's not necessary to stay in the state of loss.
Correct.
But just embrace the new way that the person is communicating with you.
Yes, because again, remember, more often than not, tears are the chemical release of negative definitions that have anchored themselves in the body by creating a chemical component. So when you do grieve in the natural way, you are releasing the negative definitions through your tears. The chemical constituents of those negative definitions are being washed away.
So, yes, I know it's a lot for people to go through. So
that's all right.
We always have that empathy for anyone that, and it's a very human thing that we experience.
And that's okay. And again, there's no real hurry. Not really. Not ultimately.
So thank you for that. And here's a question about, can you talk about how we amplify our excitement energy based on a feeling rather than an image in our heads?
Well, that's the whole point of the image, is to generate the feeling, although you don't necessarily have to have an image if you're already capable of simply generating the feeling. Many incidents that put you in touch with that state of being, that feeling, are, as we said, specifically for that purpose. Just giving you the sensation, the feeling of the state of being that represents your high state at that moment and from which to take all actions in your life. So yes, of course, if you're familiar with what that feels like, you can certainly just allow yourself to remember what it did feel like and understand that the trick is that the only way you could possibly remember what it did feel like is that you're already in that state, even if it doesn't feel the same. Because you can't experience what you're not the vibration of. So you actually have to already be in the state to even have the memory of having been in the state. That's the trick.
So the whole idea is, must there be an emotion associated with it, or
it can just be a sensation?
Okay, or even the idea of the sensation of excitement.
Well, there will be a sensation.
Okay, so there will always be a sensation associated with it, and
because you are experiencing yourself as physical beings.
So really, what you're saying is that, in a sense, your higher mind has and your higher self knows the frequency that is representative of your highest excitement.
Yes.
And when you learn that frequency better and better and better every time
Yes.
you do something that's following your highest excitement,
Yes.
what happens is that you start creating a stronger and stronger communication with the higher mind because
Yes.
it recognizes that frequency, so do you.
Yes, and it is literally the language of the higher mind.
Right. And so now you have a language that you can speak in.
Yes.
But I'm still thinking about the idea of the sensation itself.
Yes.
I guess getting more and more clear about what is instead of anxiety, let's say.
Yes.
Or instead of some other ulterior reason for doing something that you're denying, right? That would also create sort of a false sense of excitement.
In a sense, yes, you can disguise anxiety as excitement. You have to be clear within yourself and discerning what is the real truth within yourself. You have to be honest.
So is there a way that you can maybe practice the idea of honing in on the true frequency for yourself?
It will still be different for different people.
Right, because it's always very unique to each person.
Yes,
all the
but
things
that's why
that
we
happen.
say one of the most general ways for everyone is to at least remember a time when you did feel that. Because the moment you remember a time when you did feel it, even if for a split second, you're in that state, even if it doesn't feel the same as it did before. Knowing that will allow you to act from that vibration.
That's a good trick. So another way you can do it then is by doing some activity that you did when you were a child, letting yourself be in the moment.
Yes.
And then you'll suddenly recreate that state, and bingo, it's starting to get anchored again in your psyche.
And again, really, the very fact that you let yourself conceive of the idea of reenacting something you did as a child means you already are in the state in order to have had that idea. That's the trick. It's not about reenacting it and getting into the state. You have to be in the state even to think about reenacting it.
Right. I guess you're just amplifying it then. And,
Yes.
And remembering.
You're reinforcing it.
You're reinforcing it.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Do you want to stop now?
We are not stopping. We are
I
simply
know.
allowing you to take a short break
All right.
so that we may then share with you the meditation that we call the ABC meditation to help smooth out and empower the energy in your area so that you may move forward in your lives in a positive and beneficial way without fear. So take a short break. We will resume with that transmission in a few minutes.
So we'll reconvene in about 15 minutes.